Howie Chizek's funeral service, which was held today at the Berkowitz Kuman Bukat's funeral home in Cleveland Heights, near where he grew up. It was a lovely ceremony and was presided over by Rabbi Allison Van of the Suburban Temple. The speakers were all wonderful. It includes Howie's nephews and nieces, longtime friends, WNIR President Bob Klaus, and one of the young people from his New Adventures charities. As you will hear tonight, three things will probably come to your mind throughout the course of this broadcast for the next 30 minutes or so. And that is that there was some humor, it might bring a tear to your eye. And the third thing is, what will strike you about the entire thing is the class and dignity in which it was done. Howie Chizek deserved this. And so, ladies and gentlemen, WNIR now presents the recording of that service. Here is Rabbi Van.
Death has taken our beloved Howie, and we come together this morning in a kinship of sorrow. And as we share our sorrow, we do not share our cell phones or our cameras. And so I ask that you make sure that your cell phones and cameras are in the off or silent position so that we can be present for each other and present for the service. Together we grieve in our darkened world. In our silence there is lamentation. In our tears there is loneliness. Lost in our sorrow, may we find the presence of loving friends. Hear us, O God, be with us. For Howie's life that united us and life in which death cannot sever. For his companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of his heart and mind that brought us so much precious joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give thanks for his life, for his talent, for his love. Psalm 23, if you know the words, please join with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Rabbi Alvin Fine wrote, birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until, looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, a stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage to life everlasting. Chaim Potok once taught, we live less than the time it takes to blink an eye if we measure our lives against eternity. So it may be asked, what value is there to a human life? There is so much pain in the world. What does it mean to have to suffer so much if our lives are nothing more than the blink of an eye? I learned a long time ago, Chaim Potok wrote, that the blink of an eye in itself is nothing, but the eye that blinks, that is something. A span of life is nothing, but the person who lives the span is something. A person can fill that tiny span with meaning, so its quality is immeasurable, though its quantity may be insignificant. An individual's life must be filled with meaning. Meaning is not automatically given to life. It is hard to fill one's life with meaning. A life with meaning is worthy of rest. Howie's life was cut short, but it was deeply filled with meaning, meaning that enriched so many lives. What a gift he was. To remember him with love and affection during this service, it is an honor for me to call forward a number of speakers who represent the fullness of Howie's life. I'll introduce them all now, and they'll come up in that order with no further introduction. To speak this morning will be Jill Gresham, Larry's stepdaughter, Jonah Chizek, grandson of Larry, Michael Chizek, Tim Deininger, Bob Klaus, and Andrew Risner. Each have been touched so deeply and loved so deeply by Howie, and who loved him in return. It's an honor to call them forward. First, Jill, Jonah, and Michael.
Howie Chizek was so many things to so many different people. To me, he will always be Uncle Howie. I remember he would always come over our house and say, "Who wants to have fun today?" That meant anything from going to the corner to get something to eat, lengthy discussions over song lyrics, to a week or so in Disney World. No matter what, you knew when he said fun, he meant it. But some of the greatest times would be just getting to spend the night at his house. We would watch TV, or maybe a movie. He would even let me help him make dinner. Whatever we did, we would do it together. He never yelled at us or tried to be our parents. He was the fun uncle. And even more importantly, he was our friend. He mentored us, he educated us with his actions and his encouragement, but never trying to lecture us. We learned things without knowing we were learning things. I remember spending the night at his house one time, and he had gotten me a really detailed model car to build. We worked on it together for hours. At one point, I was having trouble putting it together. I got really frustrated, picked up the car, slammed it down, stormed off and pouted in front of the TV in the other room until I fell asleep. I still feel bad about that. When I woke up in the morning, the car was sitting on the table, fully completed. To this day, I have no idea how long that took him to do. He took me to more Cavs games than I can count, tons of forced soccer games, and even some of the hockey games, but I really can't even remember what the name of that team was. I'll never forget the Miracle at Richfield, Colonial Williamsburg, and the days we had at the park. He would let me bring friends with me. We would run the Coliseum like we owned the place. It was like our giant playground. We would sneak around on the lowest levels and hang out with the organ player and the stats guy. I usually missed most of the game. I would always be down at the announcer's booth at halftime, though, to check in with Uncle Howie. And he would always ask me how the game was going, even though he knew I was only probably paying half attention to it. No matter where in the stadium you were, though, you could always hear his voice. So I felt like he was always right there with me. I'll miss that voice. I know we all will. After each one of our 5 children was born, the hardest thing for me is that my grandfather, Howie's father, who loved children so much, would never have a chance to lay eyes on them. would go to his house for family get-togethers, the look in Uncle Howie's eyes when he interacted with my children was the same look I expected to see in my grandfather's eyes. Now I'll never get to see that again. Uncle Howie just wanted to see a smile on our face. He always put the needs of others before his own. I pray every day that I am able to instill this in my children, even half as much as he did for us. Fortunately for me, my wife is the same way. Maybe that's why she and Uncle Howie hit it off from the beginning, because they could see that in each other. I know that because of his influence, I was able to find such an incredible person and always look for the best in others. Truth is, Uncle Howie never liked to be fussed over. He would rather do the fussing. His joy came from bringing joy to others. I would ask you all to help me honor his memory by going out and doing something nice for someone else without expecting anything in return. Do it just to see the smile on their face.
Uncle Howie came into my life when I was an adult. However, he always made me feel as if we'd been family my whole life. Over the years, our relationship became one of family, friendship, and respect. My sister, brother, and I always knew that we could ask for advice or share a joke or just hang out with Uncle Howie. While what I told him or discussed with him was private, that didn't mean he wouldn't use my real-life escapades for his radio show. I was always glad to be of service. Uncle Howie's tolerance of everyone and everything only made us love him more. He didn't judge, but he did have opinions and loved to share them. When it came to Uncle Howie's heart, his love had no boundaries, as shown to all of us by Jackson, his 3.5-year-old neighbor, who he shared Klondike bars and lemonade with on a regular basis. When it came to those in need, Uncle Howie's generosity was endless. One particular holiday stands out for me. The year was 2002, and the holiday was Thanksgiving. It was just the two of us, and we decided to make a traditional meal together. Keep in mind, there was only two of us. A 5-pound bag of potatoes, 8 boxes of stuffing, and a 20-pound turkey for two. We ate and laughed until we couldn't move, and then he took the story to the airwaves. I could go on forever remembering and cherishing memories of my Uncle Howie. To my stepfather, Larry, thank you for sharing Uncle Howie with our family. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all his fans, his kids that he cherished. Chris, Trusha, Matt, Jackie, Madison, Jonah, my mom, and Larry for their support and love during this sad time for all of us. I would like to recognize Radio WNIR for their care, concern, and respect for our family, and most of all for their love of Uncle Howie. Over the last 5 days, I've been comforted by the comments and calls to the radio station of love, support, and respect for Uncle Howie. I know he meant so much to so many. It is apparent that Uncle Howie touched tens of thousands of people, made them think, made them care, and made me proud. I would like to close with one more recent story about Uncle Howie. On June 9th of this year, Uncle Howie turned 65. He didn't really want to party, but thank God he reconsidered. Matt and Jackie hosted all of us for a barbecue bash at their home. We got him his favorite cake and a new digital camera for his trip to Florida. To say he was happy is putting it mildly. It gives us great comfort to know that Uncle Howie knew he was loved by all of us, and he will live in our hearts forever.
Hello, everybody. Howie Chizek. I think we could talk for hours. I'm sure we will. I just like to relate one quick story, and I think it kind of sums up the fellow that Howie was. back in 1991, a mutual friend of ours, John Zappolo, I believe he's here, I was looking for a offensive line coach to help out at St. Anne's, now the Communion of Saints. And I had met Howie only one time in passing. I didn't really know him. And John suggested, you should go talk to Howie. It's been a few years. It'd been 3, 4, 5 years since he had coached over in the old Northeast League. I said, okay. So I showed up at his remote broadcast at Claiborne Ford on a Saturday afternoon. And he was walking to his car, and I was approaching him, and he kind of looked at me like, and not really recognizing me. I only met him once. And he stopped, and I said, Coach G, how you doing? We met. Oh, okay. I said, I come to get you to coach with me. And he kind of hemmed and he hawed, and he says, I'm kind of retired, and, I was not taking no for an answer. So finally, after about a half hour, he kind of looked at me and went, I said, I'll make you a deal. I've got this charitable thing I'm doing next week. I'm going to Florida, but I'll be back. I didn't even know about the new adventures at that time. He says, I'll come out a day or two a week, and I'll help out with, some of the new kids who need to get into a stance and things like that. Howard didn't miss a practice for 12 years after that. And I think that kind of sums up Howard's motivation, dedication, and everything he stood for. And, a year into the program, he was our assistant head coach, and a huge part of everything that we stood for and have done over many, many years. This could go on forever, but I'll tell you what. Take a look at this picture up here and that smirk on his face, and that really sums it all up. He's got that smile that says, I know something you don't. Okay, Howard, what is it? Just smile for him and smile for all of us. Thank you.
Bob Klaus, owner of WNIR.
I'm speaking today for the entire Klaus family. Every morning, for the last 38 years, one of the first people I would see was Howie. Sitting at his desk with a handful of news clippings, a pen, and a legal pad. I would greet him with the same greeting. Hi, Hal. How are you? To which I would get the full report on his vital statistics. And a synopsis of the juicy subjects he planned to introduce to the audience that day. Howie with a juicy subject was like a kid with a new bike. His excitement was contagious, and I knew that the audience was going to get another day of great radio. My father hired Howie in 1974, and on June 3rd, 1974, Howie opened his mic for the first time in what would become the longest-running radio talk show in America. In March of 1975, I joined my father's business at age 23. Little did I know that this man would be such an integral part of my life for the next 37 years. I learned this business at both of their knees. My father, a master radio broadcaster off mic, and Howie, many years his junior, but even at that young age, a master radio broadcaster on mic. Together they invented non-guest talk radio. Nor at that time did I know how much of my life would be spent listening to his show. Back in 1975, when my friends were listening to rock and roll, I was listening to the magic that was happening from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 100 FM on the radio dial. I loved listening to his show and did so for thousands of hours. And like so many of his hundreds of thousands, even millions of fans, not being able to continue listening leaves an immense void. Because in addition to being Howie's friend and employer, I too was a huge fan. One week ago today, I listened for a few solid hours as I was driving to and from Cleveland. As usual, he was right on point. But the audience was picking on him pretty bad. When I arrived back at the station, his show had concluded. He was at the computer checking his email. I told him, Howie, I had the great pleasure to be able to listen to the show today, and it was another great one. But I can't figure out why the audience was picking on you so much. To which he replied sarcastically, "That's what they do when you're number one."